Exercise 8. In this exercise, we look at the functionality that's built into ViaCAD Pro version 8 as well as Shark FX. And this is going to be for photorealistic rendering. To begin, just have a part, have it ready. It doesn't really matter what colors you had in advance, although that could be an advantage. Some of the things that you might want to do also, any sharp edges that you might see, you might want to put small little fillets on them. So for example, it gives it a more realistic appearance, so 0.005 or 0.01. And you can just go ahead and select the edges, and put those in. What that does is it breaks the edge a little bit, gives it an enhanced appearance. I'm just going to put a few more on here. Okay. Alright, so now at this point, get into the position you like. And you probably want to activate the perspective display. Now I'm going to go to open the view properties dialog in the lower left here. The focal point defaults to 100 typically, and I like right around 30 seems to be a pretty good perspective focal length. Make sure the perspective is checked on. I notice sometimes if you have a bottom or a base, it has an issue with like not giving you the perspective that you're looking for. But the further you zoom out, the better it's going to look. And sometimes when you have a base set up. This particular model, I did have a base, and for some reason it seems to remember the vanishing point. It doesn't. When I zoom up very close, it doesn't come out quite right. So I just set the resolution very high and zoom out a little bit to get to the perspective that you like. Okay, then over here we have the render. I'm going to go ahead and click on that, and it should bring up this little toolbar. And you can see you have you specified metal, glass, plastic, mirror, and then there's sketch. So these all do rather interesting things. If I just go ahead and click on the mirror there, you'll see it will run through and render. Now depending upon how you have your renderer set up, it's going to react a little bit differently. You'll see scan lines with the lesser settings. In this case, it just went ahead and rendered everything gold. And that's when you select that option, that's what it does. It's just a default. It's a quick way to get an image. All right. If we go back there, there's actually the settings option. Photorealistic render settings. And when you're first making your quick renderings, you don't want to have like all those things turned on. So some of these things enable HDRI shadows. Those are higher level settings. Make sure radiosity is turned off. It really slows down the computer quite a bit. And max ray trace reflections. I mean, you could set it down to even 4 or something like that. You don't have to have it quite 16. I'm going to go ahead and leave it. I don't really have to worry too much. You could also click on defaults again. It will reset everything. And at this point now, I'm going to go ahead and click on this again. And I'm just going to render it as is. Use the specified materials. Click. It's kind of hard to see the scan lines as they go through there, but depending upon how many cores you have in your processor, you could actually see all of them in action. So for example, if I hit Control Alt Delete, start the task manager, and go over here to the performance, the CPU usage, these are all of your cores. Now not all of them are real cores, some of them are they're hyper-threading. And that's with Intel's technology where it simulates a second core, or it's actually a thread as they call it, versus core is actually a piece of hardware that's in the microprocessor. Each processing core can handle each rendering of a scan line. But you'll notice here, this does take full advantage of those. I'm going to set this down a little bit lower here to I'm going to turn shadows on, and we're going to just turn on drop shadow, reduce it a little bit here. Go ahead and click, and you'll be able to see as it renders. In this case, I actually didn't see it taking advantage of everything there. Let's try that again. Let's turn on the higher level rendering. There you go. See, it's spiking up to 100%. So it took advantage of all the processors in there to get the rendering. This particular processor I have is an Intel, it's an Extreme i7, and it has 6 cores, and then it has 6 threads. So they're running off of that with hyper-threading. Sorry, more the better usually. Okay, so you can see how it rendered. It just took some of the colors that were there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and we're going to go to the window and turn on the render library. Okay, with the render library, it enables you to go ahead and drop all this great library of different, I should say, materials right onto your part. Now, here's the thing. Like, let's say we want, here's like a glass. I'm going to go ahead and drop that on the top. I think it gives it a pretty cool look. Click on that. Just release it onto the surface of your model. Now, under the Render tab over here on the right, with the inspector on, if you don't have your inspector on, go to Windows, click on Inspector. You'll see Enable Shadow Cast, Enable Shadow Receive. It's something interesting here that really gives it a nice effect, or sometimes you can turn it off too if you don't want it. It's the double-sided facets. I'm going to leave it off just to show you what it does, but I'm going to go ahead and hit Apply here. Oops, let's see. And let's try and render that. Okay, for some reason it didn't take. Hold on a second. Let me just go ahead and drag that back in there. Okay, now let's try and render it. There we go. Now notice that the Use Object Color was turned on too. I'm going to go ahead and deactivate that in a moment here. But now with the just the default settings, this is what you get, right, which is actually not too bad of an image. I'm going to turn off Use Object Color, and I'm going to turn on Double-Sided Facet and hit Apply. Now we could go ahead and re-render it. Again, maybe it must not have taken when I applied as far as color. It picked up the color that was on the model, I think. But take a look at the double-sided facet now. It gave it a different effect. It actually makes it look hollow. Now, if it keeps disappearing on you like that, you do have this option. And I think this might be a glitch in this version of SarkFX because I have version 7 and I don't have the same issue. It does not. There's an option here. We can bring it up again. Display last image. Okay. And like I said, I think it's a glitch why it disappears so quickly in this version 8. They'll probably have a patch if they don't already out for it to fix that. As, in version 7 of SharkFX, I don't have that issue. Anyhow, there are a couple things you could do. Once you do click on there, you could go to the advanced, and then over here you'll see the color. Even though we selected glass, it still seems to be in there. And I'm going to go ahead and just drag this over to get like a light gray or almost white. We should see in the little image there. Should update. There we go. Maybe a little less blue. Alright. Now we could go ahead and try rendering. And there you could see, now it's the blue tint is gone. And this is real time, actually. This is a pretty fast processor that's in here. I do have some of the settings up a bit higher. If I send back to default, it would go much quicker, actually. So if you don't have a computer with multiple processors in it, or I should say cores, or if you have only like maybe a dual core, like a Core 2 Duo or something like that, you could always reduce that by going to the defaults. That it doesn't take quite as long. Okay, so there we have that rendering. Now let's fiddle with that a little bit more. Let's go over here. I'm going to drag and drop this onto the base of that little rubber diaphragm there. And we want to go ahead and use double-sided base. I think I will go with the object color. Let's go ahead and render it again. With the object color, it's almost nearly opaque. So I'm going to have to fix that. Just hit escape if you need to get out of it. Okay, so for that, you can also do this. You could right click on the part. Locate it, there it is. And then there's colors in here. These are the basic colors. You do have photo render too. And you could edit the material out of here, or add material to library if you edit one and like it. Over here you can see the preview. Turn on auto there. And I'll turn off use object color. Remember that checkbox is over here on the right. Here you can make adjustments. Get that maybe a little bit different color than what we had earlier. And actually now it looks as though it's transparent. It was just very dark with the black. So that's good. I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. And let's go ahead and change the bottom here. Let's find a nice, like a white, like ceramic porcelain. There's usually those are a little bit darker than I want. Just scroll down here until I find like the plastics. Further down, they have shiny resins and things like that you can choose from. This is more of a matte, plastic matte. We want the plastic polished white. There we go. Grab that, drag it onto this part down here. Turn off use object color. Click. Also that little purple part there. Notice I've put all these parts on different layers. So for example, the top cover, I could hide that. And now on that little light, they actually do have lights in here too that give off reflectivity. I know I've found them in here before. Anyhow, I'm actually going to go with like a purple or violet glass. It's supposed to be like an ultraviolet light. Drag it onto that surface there. Also turn off use object color and double-sided face or facets. I'm going to find a brass material. Gold there. Maybe I kind of like that gold. I think I'm going to go with it. Oh, here we go. Burnished metal, burnished bronze. I go with the burnished gold. Drop it onto this part here. Okay, then over here we have a metal base or metal burnished graphite. I kind of like that one. Drag that onto this part here. And then as far as the copper goes, that's a copper winding that has to be on there. So the problem is that there are actually individual little parts here. So I'm going to go ahead and merge all those. So I'm going to select one. I'm going to go over here to add solid. Start off by selecting that first one. I'm just going to click and drag a fence to surround the others. Make them all one so I don't have to drop the copper onto each individual one. There, now it's all one. So I can find copper here. I'm going to go with a polished copper, or actually maybe even metal burnished. And the polish looks really nice. I'll grab that. Okay. Let's get some more like a red plastic here for the wire. I'm going to drag that onto the wire that's there. And then I need something like, oh, this blue is perfect. Just drag that onto that model there. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and bring back the top cover. I'm going to disable the gripper here. I don't really need the gripper for anything on this particular project. Okay. Now we could go ahead and render this. Also, the background color. You might have noticed it was coming out like a blue. That's if you go to the right click on where it says Shark or ViaCAD 3D, go to Preferences, and then Colors. Let's turn to a solid color here. This is that color that comes up in the background by default. So if you change it, I'm going to actually try black. Okay. Now it's interesting because when we go to the renderer then, when you have the drop shadows and reflections turned on, it gives kind of a cool effect. Okay, again, it didn't last there, but what we'll do is we'll export this to a file. What I'm going to do here is render file. Is it render file? There we go. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and render this. Like I said, I like to do them very large. If you're making magazine covers, they usually like 3,000 by 3,000 or something like that. Let's go ahead. And this, by the way, did make front cover of Catalyst magazine a couple years ago. It's a little design I came up with. Anyhow, ray trace, shadows, anti-aliasing, turn it all on if you like that. That's going to really enhance the image quite a bit. JPEG I'm going to go with here, but they do have other options. And I'm going to go ahead and hit save. And drop that into my pictures here. I'm just going to give that a name. Call it T2. Okay. Now, just for the sake of time, I just threw this up. This is actually one of the renderings created in the software. You can see after adding some different effects and colors, you're able to do some really neat things. One additional item I want to show here is that I do have a spotlight on this, and I want to show you how to put that up there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and zoom out here. And to set the spotlight up, you're probably better off turning off your perspective display. Get rid of that. Just temporarily. You got to turn it back on when you make the rendering. But also go to the work plane and show grid. And then go to work plane and let's show it from the side. Okay. From the side here, you could it enables you to drop in now spotlights. So you have distance lights, you have a little spotlight here, there's point lights. There's a lot of neat little tools in here. Okay, I'm going to go with the spotlight. And you can just go above the part. Since we have it, our plane right in the center here, it makes it easy for us. Just click, drag down a little bit, and that creates our spotlight. You can actually see in the preview with the OpenGL effects that you are getting some of the spotlight in there. So I'm going to hit the green check mark, and now you can actually move this, relocate it, and you can even put it at an angle. You could, if you turn on the gripper, you're actually able to grab the gripper, zoom out here, and see this little band. Drag that to tilt the light a little bit so you can get some neat shadow effects. You can also adjust the exterior and the scale. Turn off the grid here for a second. Anyhow, when you draw it, you can actually extend it longer to make a smaller cone angle. I know you can actually adjust this to, let's see, centers, attach. There's lots of neat options in here. Like as far as the resolution of the light, you can set it to super fine, very fine, fine. What color the light filter that you want to have on there. If you want to make it like a little yellowish or more like sunlight, you can adjust that. Okay, so anyway, now at this point, you could go ahead and render it again. It could give you some neat effects. I'm having a few issues here with the rendering on here. So it's locking up a little bit. I might be because I'm trying to record it at the same time. Run a little low on memory. But anyhow, I think you get the idea how you can make some really nice renderings in here and fiddle with some of these other tools as well. So that concludes this exercise.